Sorry We Missed You is out in cinemas now, the new film directed by Ken Loach. And just what a film it is. It's technically a drama, but I personally say it can be described as a horror film. A horror where the terrifying monster that the protagonists have to face is not a witch, not a demon, or not a ghost, nor a vampire, but quite simply capitalism. Or rather, the way that some of the mechanisms of capitalism allow for exploitation of the working class people. So the film opens with the main protagonist, Ricky, starting a job as a delivery driver. He is not, however, directly employed by the company, but rather starts his own franchise, as the boss recommends, and he works on a B2B basis. In theory, that allows him to earn more money and have more freedom than he otherwise wouldn't. In practice, yeah, he can take a day off whenever he wants, but he has to find a replacement for or pay for it. Unexpected illness or appointment that causes him to miss work, he has to pay a fine. Something breaks in his car, his responsibility. Something breaks in the equipment provided by the company, he has to buy it back. In order to even have the money to buy the van, he has to sell his wife's Abby, his wife's car, and as a result, Abby now has to commute to work by bus. And she works as a social worker. She has to visit different older people at homes. The family also has a teenage son and a young daughter, and the main motivation behind Ricky's initial decision is that he wants to get them all a permanent home. Well, why hasn't he done so already? You're gonna ask. He almost did back in 2008, but then the financial crisis hit, and Ricky lost a lot of his savings and his permanent job. And for the past decade, the family has been renting places, and the man of the house has to take whatever odd jobs were available construction, plumbing, etc. So he views this new driving gig as a way to break free, to be rid of this vicious cycle finally. Even if it sounds like a terrible sacrifice, he estimates that he will have to work for around 14 hours a day for about 2 years to earn enough money for a mortgage deposit. And he begins doing just that with limited breaks, no days off, and a bottle for piss that he keeps in the back of the car. And you can now probably see where the movie will go from here. It's just this. It's completely merciless in showing us the spiral of problems that the family get into, between Ricky's slave-like job, Abby's, the wife's equally soul-crushing work with the old patients, and increasingly troubling behavior of the growing-up son. Things start to deteriorate. And okay, I know some, I personally know some people who, after this description, will roll their eyes and say this is anti capitalist communist propaganda. But seriously, just watch the damn film. It's not like the scenarios presented are overblown or unrealistic. In fact, I learned that the movie was actually inspired by a real story of a delivery driver that died in January 2018 because instead of going to hospital with his diabetes, he worked through the Christmas rush, afraid to lose even a day of work because he would have to pay fines for not being there. It just feels very real and unexaggerated and raw, and because of that, it's all the more heartbreaking. Because the things that happen to the family are not death or bombings or terrorist attacks, it's just life itself. Every day slowly chipping away at them, never really breaking them completely, but continuing to suck away everything that's worth anything, that's worth living for. Worse still, Ken Loach sprinkles the story with moments of hope and joy, touching moments where the family manages to smile and connect and enjoy themselves for just a second. And each time you feel like this glimmer of hope may be a sign of better things to come, it's just taken away again. Gone, that's it. That hope you had, the filmmakers just throw it on the floor and then spit on it and then kick it in the balls. It's an absolutely devastating movie to watch. I mean, I was a mess after it finished. I had to stay in a theater for a moment just to compose myself. I heard people sobbing during several scenes, and I myself had wet eyes more than one time. It's not a feel good film. It's certainly a feel bad film. Again, I think even more so because of how mundane it ultimately is. Those are not some crazy scenarios that are happening, but rather, I mean, we probably pass people like these on the road every single day. People who are in a shitty situation, not because they deserved it, not because they didn't try hard enough, not because they're lazy or mean or incompetent. I mean, the movie goes to great lengths to show that both Ricky and Abby are fantastic employees, but unfortunately, they're not programmers, they're not managers, they're not accountants, so who cares? The working class, especially this particular generation trapped below the debris of the 2008 financial crisis, is shown to be a trap, essentially, an unescapable constant struggle. I think the film worked for me on so many levels, partly because it's so eye opening to me. I myself am lucky enough to not be part of this system, this working class. But seeing some of those experiences put on screen this way, I mean, it just broke me down. It just broke me. I'm depressed just thinking about it all over again. I also want to say that this movie surprised me because I went to see it completely blind and walked out thinking that Parasite now has a contender for the title of the best movie of 2019, and honestly, that says a lot coming from me. I think Sorry We Missed You is equal parts fantastic and devastating. It's difficult for me to say that I loved it because it wouldn't sound right, but I guess I loved how great it is because I do think that it's a masterpiece. Although I'm not sure I'll ever get the courage to see it again a second time.